It's a privilege to be here at 2025 edition of TOTM Awards in Pune. Well, just to set the context, as we all know, India has set a target for net zero emission by 2070, and transportation plays a very significant role and will play a very significant role in achieving that transition. When we talk about fuel technology, there are alternative fuel technologies which get talked about, which get spoken about. And CNG as an alternative fuel technology is a very prominent one, or is, I would say, is becoming a very prominent one. Globally as well, if you look at the CNG industry itself, has been growing at a CAGR of roughly around 10.5 odd percentage. Prominent market being China, followed by India, which is the second largest, but one of the fastest growing CNG markets. Thailand, South Korea, and all this across these different countries has been possible because of the government support and the incentives which have been offered to the manufacturers. It's estimated that the size of the industry will move from roughly around 5 billion to 8.5 billion over the next few years. So that's the potential which it really has. But to understand and to decipher as to what really exists for the Indian CNG market, we have expert panelists who would be talking about and who would be sharing their perspective as to what they believe lies ahead for us as a country when it comes to CNG as an alternative fuel. Have a quick round of introduction. To my left, we have Mr. Sandeep Rana. Mr. Rana is the Executive Director, Head Product Planning at Maruti Suzuki India Limited. Sandeep, welcome to this panel. Next, we have, thank you, Mr. Vishwanath Bhagwat. Mr. Bhagwat is the Head Powertrain Design at Bajaj Auto. So welcome you. And we look forward to have your views on this aspect. And last but not the least, I think everyone knows him, Mr. Yogendra Pratap. He's the Editor-in-Chief for Auto Today. Welcome, Yogendra. So let me start with you, Mr. Sandeep. I mean, we've been tracking and we've been seeing how successfully your organization, which is MSIL, has gained significant share as far as the CNG portfolio is concerned, and I personally believe this will go up further. Almost, I think 1 out of 3 vehicles that you have are now CNG vehicles. Potentially, it's roughly around 38% share, or more than that, 38 point something of the total portfolio. Broadly, wanted to understand what's really driving this shift. I mean, what is making the end user, consumer go out and opt for CNG as an alternative?
First of all, thanks for this question, and first of all, thanks everyone. Thanks for inviting and having me here in this event. Regarding this question of CNG as a powertrain strategy for our vehicles, I think I would like to say that for Maruti Suzuki, we have been working on the overall product planning and overall strategy of our portfolio, that how we can bring in more value to the customer, and CNG being one of a very important portfolios right from a very early stage within Maruti. We had thought that how we can create a value proposition on account of initially on cost of running. So Maruti Suzuki pioneered by bringing in the first OE-fitted CNG vehicle into the market, to the stage what you just now shared the numbers also. Today we have almost all of our models which we offer as a CNG powertrain. And if we try to see that apart from what the regulatory framework is, because CAFE is one of the key parameters which drives the overall powertrain strategy, and there CNG plays a very important role because when we have a CNG powertrain compared to a gasoline vehicle, we get almost 20% better CO2 values. But that's not enough because CO2 is a regulatory framework which drives the strategy. But what is most important is what is the value proposition for the customer. So at Maruti Suzuki, when we conceived this concept of making vehicles, so we tried to develop vehicles which are specifically tuned and specifically developed for this CNG powertrain. To name a couple of things, if I say we took into account the various aspects of safety, performance, and various aspects of efficiency within the powertrain. So we have taken a lot of countermeasures on the engine side, on the calibration side, so that we are able to provide performance which is much better to the customer, where definitely we don't feel laggard as far as the performance is concerned, and also giving a good balance of running cost. The vehicles are tuned for full safety because we have taken many countermeasures in the overall circuitry, both from overall reliability of the engine as well as on the high pressure circuit side, how we are able to have very reliable joints as well as materials which take care of all the safety aspects. The vehicles are also tuned from drivability so that the driving performance is also up to the mark. But this is not the end of the overall progression of how things are. And these things actually has led to customers going in and preferring for CNG as a reliable option for them to opt. And that is how, just to share some data, I think if we see and compare last 4 or 5 years, the penetration of CNG in vehicles more than 10 lakhs, say if we see 4 years prior from now, was hardly anything. And today we see almost the total CNG market, I think 20 to 30% is now into vehicles which are more than 10 lakhs. Right. So that is how we see how the penetration is increasing because customer is becoming much more smart. They are also understanding, they want that it's not only as a option of only a cost efficient solution, but they prefer that how we can have a overall solution which is smart for the customer.
Sure, sure. So what you're saying is, I think the customer has become more aware of, the customer has become much more educated. They certainly sustainability is one of the crucial factor. I mean, apart from the driving performance which you talked about, sustainability, cleaner energy is also something which is driving this shift. And as you pointed out, Sandeep, that it's not only the entry-level vehicles in the CNG, it's also the mid-market which is gaining traction. From a safety standpoint, what was holding back the customers till now, and what has really changed in your view?
As far as see at Maruti Suzuki, we definitely for us safety is paramount, and right from the crash safety to the overall high pressure CNG system circuit, all safety parameters have been kept in mind and countermeasures have been done in the overall system. And for customer, I think with time they have understood these things better, and definitely we are able to see a stark difference between what earlier the retro market used to offer and what OE fitted system is. So definitely customers are now more aware and they are able to see the difference, and with a better understanding and communication, they are able to appreciate this better, and this is driving it.
I think that holds the key in terms of better communication and awareness which has to be created. Yeah, Yogi.
Yeah, I'd just like to jump in.
Sure.
about what was holding the customers back, and still does to some extent. Of course, the shift towards CNG is because of running costs. Customers want vehicles that will run for cheaper. And the regulatory push towards CNG in commercial vehicles and fleets did make manufacturers turn towards CNG in quite a big way. And although the fuel prices haven't gone up as much as one was expecting in the past, but still everybody wants to run their vehicles for cheaper. So nationally, there was a dearth of supply of gas a few years back, but that has eased out over the last couple of years with also private players getting into the market and big names also now pushing gas. The availability of filling stations and the long queues on them, I mean, that prevented people from switching to CNG. I think the safety aspects, people have understood that these vehicles are safe. I mean, much more so than the new electric vehicles that are coming in. People still have some doubts about those, but I think CNG now, nobody questions whether they are safe or...
There is more awareness and appreciation that...
Yeah, and they've seen all the fleets running on CNG.
Right.
So that is not so much of a concern. I think what is preventing a majority of the people from switching to CNG, which I think overall is a good fuel. It is cleaner. It is cheaper for India. There will be a lot more coming in from the country itself, whether from natural sources or from the garbage dumps that are going to be producing gas. And is the biggest problem was that the vehicles that people buy are compromised. So, I mean, in the beginning, okay, where the spare wheel would go, the tank would be there, or then the spare wheel would be on top, or now there's some innovation that has come in with the twin cylinders, smaller 2 cylinders in vehicles, which doesn't compromise space so much. But the ideal way forward would be to have dedicated CNG platforms which offer to the customer a full car rather than a compromised car. And it's not that this is something new that has to be developed from scratch globally. There have been global companies who have done it. One of the German companies, I think long time back, 20 years back, showcased a prototype with 4 tanks built into the monocoque, very nicely packaged, no compromise of interior space or luggage space. So it can be done. And I think the players who are leading in this field are realizing that something like that needs to come about to have the next push to CNG. And with, I think, Maruti at the previous Auto Expo 2 years back, they did say that their focus is going to be on CNG, and this will help them, of course, the CAFE norms and CO2 emissions, but also offering what is core to their existence is value to the customer. I mean, everybody perceives that they will be able to offer that, and we are hoping that they will design a vehicle which will offer a complete CNG car. And a very good example is here with Bajaj, who've I mean, done fantastic packaging on a bike, on a small commuter vehicle, which now offers much lower running costs for the customer. And with that question about safety not so paramount, I think there will be a switch and an overall shift towards CNG, which is good for the country in the long term.
So there's a big shift in the perception, as you pointed out, Yogendra. That's right. So Vishwanath, to you, I think a related one, as Yogendra pointed out, it's a shift in the technology as well. Leading the R&D, in terms of at Bajaj Auto, how much? I mean, certainly technology plays a significant role, but what, in your sense, have been the impediments or the challenges when it comes to shift from a traditional technology to a CNG technology, and more specifically in a two-wheeler?
So basically, I'll start with what Yogendra said about, the need of the hour is, especially when it comes to two-wheelers. I would like to first point out, since 2006, we have been having factory-fitted CNG vehicles. Factory-fitted CNG vehicles, three-wheelers in the market. And there the pull was largely from the running cost, 50% lower. And of course, it allowed us, clean, the fuel to be clean, and it's good for the environment, good for the customer. And there was a pull from that direction. Safety was always taken care of even then, because as compared to the situation which is a talking point of EVs, I don't think in the three-wheelers for so many years there's been a talking point of safety from the CNG perspective. And of course, technology in those days was largely, when a commercial vehicle customer, he's using it for his livelihood. There are certain technologies which is depending on the market needs and what the customer would accept in the market. And with those technologies, we had gone ahead. But as the technologies matured, I would say largely from a carbureted-based gasoline along with a mixer-based CNG, which was there in the past. Once with the BS6, the fuel injection became a norm in two-wheelers. And also we realized that in the past, it was the supply chain which was the really the bottleneck, and where the acceptance of CNG was an issue. But as the supply chain is easing up and there are more and more availability and visibility of CNG coming in, so we decided to do a ground-up design for a bike. So because you see, CNG has to be stored in a pressurized tank at around 200 bar. So the tank is a steel tank which is heavy, it's voluminous,
Right.
and it needs to be packaged somewhere. In a two-wheeler, it's the whole experience to the customer. It's the packaging, the dynamics, the ergonomics, the space where you put rest of the components. And in a challenging, it had to be a commuter to start with, because cost of ownership, you actually get 50% lower running costs on the CNG bike. So the cost of ownership is really something which would attract customers. So we really had a ground-up design where a certain frame was done up to built around the tank, where the components were packaged, you can say creatively, where we had in front of the cylinder, which it looks like a tank, is actually an airbox and a small limp home gasoline tank and all of the fuel system components, the CNG components over there. And the CG of the bike is going to be heavier, but the CG of the bike, the way it handles, and also our styling colleagues really styled it so it doesn't look anything odd. It looks a really handsome bike. And with a technology which has an injection system for CNG, an injection system for gasoline, and you can actually change from CNG to gasoline running on the fly. While the vehicle is running, you can very easily switch from, just with a flick of a switch, you would change. So what happens is, when you come from a commercial vehicle user to a consumer who appreciates good things, and for the market to pull this technology in a more widespread fashion, these conveniences also are very important for the customer. And obviously, with the years we had of managing the fuel and making the most of the efficiency, the fueling control, which the modern technology allows now. With that, I think we could get a package which really functions seamlessly at a performance level, which is very, very good, state of the art for the displacement and intention which we have. And I think that makes this proposition so much more attractive now. And I would like to just touch upon two aspects of further aspects. One is CNG can always, of course, come from the natural gas, which is underground sources, and of course there is a much better network now. But we see a government push. In fact, in the 26th January, there was a Department of Animal Husbandry actually showed a freedom with, So basically what they are trying to, the government is very much keen in pushing the biogas. So compressed biogas, so let's talk of CNG and biogas mainly as methane, because CNG is largely 90 plus 95% for methane. And you have this natural way resources which you can use with anaerobic digestion, which is not a very high funder technology, but it's And then you can get biogas, which is roughly 50% methane and largely H2S, CO2, water vapor. But there are very effective uh, technologies where you can now remove the water vapor, the CO2 and the H2S. And you can actually very well come close to the 90 plus 95% kind of a level of methane in the CBG also, compressed biogas also. So what happens all of a sudden is, instead of relying on or waiting for the expansion of distribution on the CNG, lot of this natural resources, now the production of CBG can be decentralized. And once it is decentralized, I think it opens a lot of opportunities really all over the country. And another thing is CBG is built of biomass, which typically it can be sugarcane waste or something like that. It draws CO2 from the atmosphere in the growth phase. If you allow all of these things to either burn stubble, or if you allow them as a landfill, they would anyway release CO2 and methane into the air. Whereas if you convert it to fuel, maybe depending on the research, around 50 to 70% of the carbon is actually taken into the fuel. And so that, I think it's a win situation for all.
Okay. I mean, in your view, a lot of investments, R&D has to go, or it's much simpler than what is anticipated?
I would say compared to some technology on the horizon like hydrogen, the technologies for CNG are not that difficult. It's more to do with tweaking certain materials, or how we manage the fuel, how we manage the optimization of the engine. And the storage is also relatively easier. It's not as dense as gasoline, maybe, but definitely it's a very mature technology, and the benefits which we can accrue out of this in terms of how much we can rejuvenate the rural economy, at the same time reduce the imports.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think the challenge is not technology, it is acceptance and distribution. And I think we are getting to that stage where more and more avenues are being looked at for getting gas, which can be got. There are examples all over the world that exist. I mean, in the US, a huge automotive plant runs on the gas that comes from the garbage dump of that city.
The landfills and all.
Yeah. So, I mean, in India, all those things are also maturing. We'll be getting a lot of energy from those places also. And of course, we produce a lot of landfills. So that will hope add to the supply of gas. And I think the thing is packaging it well for the customers, which is a challenge in the automotive space, and especially for personal vehicles, cars, bikes. And some people have taken the lead, and the others are following. In the car industry, now I think a lot of manufacturers offer factory. So earlier the option was to buy a vehicle and then go and get it done. Now most manufacturers are offering factory-fitted, safe and good vehicles with slight compromise. Once the compromise goes and it's a level playing field for all vehicles, then I think there's a lot of potential for CNG as a fuel.
Absolutely. No, staying on that.
To add to what we got discussed in the recent past discussion, I think to further add, I think apart from biogas, I think biogas is something which, if we truly say, it would be really good for India in the long term. From carbon neutrality point of view, I think if we see as a strategy from net zero, so government also has a very strong focus. I think it is all about how all the stakeholders have an aligned view on this and work on this, because there are a lot of challenges. I think what he also just now referred to, I think what would be required would be how well the overall quality of the gas which is generated, how the system is more robust, and how the overall distribution is done. And apart from that, I think there is a very strong focus from government side on the hydrogen blended CNG. So that also further makes the overall system more interesting. Yes, I think to further add, or say to answer your question on the technology, I think this is a mature technology. However, there are challenges. And I think what is important for this market is how we bring in more value to the customer. And definitely, there is a lot of potential of localization still existing, for which I think the overall supply chain needs to be working. the community side, sorry, supplier community side,
Yeah.
and the raw material side, where definitely a lot of, because it's a safety critical system.
Yeah. True.
Yeah.
True.
So these are few thoughts which I had. I thought, let me
They were
just
pretty
add.
interesting, thoughts. Yogin, my another question is, when we look at this entire ecosystem, one is certainly the consumer, the manufacturers, the supply chain ecosystem, which Sandeep talked about. But when it comes to the perception value, or say the government focus, we've always been reading about EV, EV, EV.
Right.
As recent as today morning, when the Honorable Finance Minister announced the Union Budget, a lot of emphasis on critical minerals, on manufacturing. We have also read about the investments going onto the electric vehicle charging infrastructure. 2 billion getting committed to have more than 10 lakhs charging infrastructure points created in the country. Isn't it that there is some kind of a tilt more towards electric vehicles and not towards CNG? I mean, what are your views, because you cover it on a larger...
See, I think moving forward, all fuels, all powertrains should be given a level playing field. I mean, EVs, one can understand why there is such a big push, and CNG, one can also understand why there wasn't such a big push, because we didn't have enough supply which could cater to industry, to households, to cities, and then moving on to transport, since there were easy options for the transport industry, so the push wasn't there so much. But it is a cleaner fuel than other ICE vehicles. So there was a push, there was some regulation towards fleet moving towards it, and that's why this technology developed to the extent that it has. But moving forward, I think it is, yes, in some cases a forgotten fuel, but some companies have pushed it. They have democratized it on many vehicles and taking their lead. The other mass market players are also in there. And once the packaging compromises that are there in cars are worked on, I think it'll be a open choice. Right now people think, okay, should I buy a petrol or a diesel car? And there are certain niche buyers who are looking at CNG, who are very valued. But I think it should be on a level playing field where people should think, oh, should I buy diesel, petrol, CNG, electric? I mean, it should all be there, and the vehicle that they get shouldn't be compromised. And we are seeing examples of more and more companies globally who are offering different powertrains in exactly the same car. And in India, I mean, CNG should also be under consideration.
So those kind of, I would say, demand side incentives which have been there should also get extended on the CNG side?
I don't think CNG needs incentives as such. I think because of the, traditionally also what happened, diesel was much cheaper, subsidized than petrol. So manufacturers didn't work on getting the latest technologies, more efficient diesel engines. But when the push came because of narrowing prices and also because of emission norms, diesel technologies suddenly were totally transformed, much cleaner, much more efficient, better drivability, everything. And I think CNG also will move in that direction. And I think some manufacturers are already seeing it because of CAFE norms also. They see it as a viable option to put more of their vehicles in CNG, and it will spread across the market.
All right.
I just want to add one thing. I think I don't really think we need incentives like EV in CNG, but definitely the distribution today is, I think, holding back the consumer from really going to CNG in a big way. Because he sees lines of commercial vehicles, taxis, three-wheelers, lines and a long waiting period at the fuel bunks.
Fuel stations.
I think if that improves really, that should, I think, open up this market much more.
I think some kind of an aggressive planning, the way it is being talked about for the EV charging infrastructure, has to be there for the CNG pumps as well.
Some more focus
but
on
I think if we know the government plans to have a very stronger network. I think today there are more than 7,000 stations across pan India. And I think by 2030, the plan roughly is about 17,000 or so, if I may be not wrong. But yes, definitely such kind of efforts would be there and are required to be done so that the availability is much easier. Definitely there is a change in last 5-6 years if we see.
Right. Right.
As far as the availability and
The availability
network is
is
concerned.
right.
I agree. I mean, it's really improved a lot, which is why even putting a CNG bike makes some sense, really.
Also, as opposed to electric vehicle infrastructure that is required to run them, which is absolutely new infrastructure that needs to be put in. For CNG, you don't, I mean, the traditional players are also there.
Yes, yes.
They already have fleets which are transporting, pipelines are there, coming up more and more. So I think it's not such a big challenge. And I think it is being addressed. The hesitancy, I think, also was because of the dearth in supply of gas and the requirements across industries, across households and cities, and the transport sector as well.
Right. Right.
All options available. Today maybe
Will coexist. All
yes,
technologies
yes,
will
yes.
coexist.
All options, be it typical conventional ICE engine, hybrid engines, CNG,
Right.
biogas, hydrogen blended, ethanol fuels, and electric vehicles. So I think all will coexist because that's what customers will have a choice. They will make a smart choice for their need, and I think we all have to see how the government vision of net zero is also managed.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you're right. I think consumer awareness, making the consumer aware about how safe these vehicles are, the drivability aspect which you talked about, Sandeep, the performance of these vehicles. I think that will also go a very long way in terms of making sure that the consumers and users get attracted towards CNG as an option.
I'll just add on this, the environment side. I mean, of course, CO2 is 25% lower inherently than gasoline, but if you really look at the hydrocarbon emissions, they are 95% or more methane. And methane is a harmless gas as against the non-methane hydrocarbons, which are smog forming. So that on the environment side also, if the awareness is definitely coming in, and it really makes sense to have CNG from the environmental perspective, really, in that sense.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think just one last thing, and any one of you can kind of attempting that. When it comes to positioning a CNG vehicle, what are those 2 or 3 aspects which a OEM would like to consider in terms of positioning the CNG vehicle vis-a-vis the alternative fuels? I mean, safety could be one, product availability could be the 2. What are your views? What would be those 2-3 factors? Anyone?
As far as CNG would be a fuel option for the customer, at least I would say that it should be like any other vehicle. So it should be a real value offering, value proposition. Say if I am a customer who wants a particular performance, SUV body shape with all features, whether it should be a 2-pedal technology or all other feature-packed vehicle. So I need to create that as an option for the future. So it should not be kind of a stepmotherly image, which maybe in the discussion I could gather that that kind of feeling should not be there. So it should be a upstream main uprunner technology offering. So with that mindset, if we are able to have vehicles, what Yogendra-san also mentioned about a dedicated platform, yes, I think that concept, if we are able to offer such kind of a solution, it definitely is going to create a lot of advantage to the customer, because customer is the key to see that how a product can actually make a success or a failure.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So just to add to this, I mean, when we put the freedom into the market, we didn't want it to look like a regular commuter vehicle. It had to stand out as a really good motorcycle. I mean, it shouldn't have been seen as, oh, it's a CNG motorcycle with a compromise. No, it's a very good motorcycle alone in its own right. It looks handsome. It's well, it drives well, it runs well, it functions well, and nowhere is there a feeling that this is any sort of compromise. And that is what we are very keen on offering to the customers, that we will not give any compromise product in the name of CNG.
That's what you positioned it. I mean,
Yes,
that's how you
exactly.
positioned it.
Yeah.
And if car manufacturers can position their cars exactly in the same way, I think sales of CNG vehicles would grow exponentially, along with the supply constraints that are taken care of.
Right. Which, any which ways, I mean, are there and will remain. Thank you very much. With this, we have come to an end. Thank you for all your wonderful views, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.